Hey everyone, I wanted to talk to you today about CBUSA, the industry's leading group purchasing organization. They make it possible for home builders like me and probably many of you to get better pricing and grow your bottom line. I'll be joining the new local chapter here in Minneapolis, and I look forward to working with the other top builders in the area to drive down material costs. CBUSA has chapters all over the US, and they're continuing to expand every year. You can learn more about the benefits and apply for membership by going to cbusa.us/learn. That's cbusa.us/learn. Additionally, if you want to hear my interview with Ryan Lipchek from CBUSA, that's episode number 26. Welcome to Curious Builder Podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. Today is Thursday, and we have another Q&A session. These questions have been submitted, and so I'll seek to spend about 20 minutes answering two separate questions. The first question is, if you could change one thing about the building industry, what would it be? It's a good question. It seems like it's been asked a lot, and it seems like it's focused mostly around attracting young talent, and that's kind of where my mind has been the last year or two. Just seeing, I'm about the middle of my career, and you look around, you see a lot of people retiring, especially with the baby boom generation that owns a lot of the country's wealth, a lot of the businesses. You hear some pretty amazing stats that for, I think it's like every 7 plumbers that are retiring, one are taking their place. You see the same sort of attrition rate in electrical as well as HVAC. And I think if I could change something about the industry, it would just really celebrate what a great career and what a great lifestyle and what owning a business can be like. And there's very few industries that have such low entry, to being an owner as the construction world. And there's pros and cons with that. But I think, for a big part of it, and I don't know when this happened because I wasn't born then, but somewhere around the 60s and 70s, it seemed like as an education policy, it was very much driven to drive people to college. And there's nothing wrong with that. I went to college. I'm not sure what I actually learned during college, but it allowed me to mature a little bit. And, I think, if you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, I mean, there's so many careers where you do need that higher level education. And again, I'm not knocking it at all. But if that's the only thing you can do, there's so much left on the table for others that don't want to do that. They either don't like schooling or they want to own a business. Most of the things that I've learned as being a business owner, almost all of them have nothing to do with education or school. And most of them seem to be common sense. Most of them seem to be just asking questions. I've mentioned many times that one of the things that I appreciate the most about people when you hire them is the figure it out factor. And, we've all met really, really intelligent people that don't have a lick of common sense. And sometimes you have people that have so much world life experience and no education, but man, are they the people you want on our team? They know so much. And I feel like really in where we're at today, I actually am pretty encouraged. I feel like this message is being very well broadcast. I heard recently, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal or an article that I came across where it was talking about people that rather than going into the financial debt or going into like Manhattan and the financial services, that they were buying, baby boomers businesses, and that essentially these were cash running machines. I think one of my regrets, just because I didn't, as a 23-year-old, I had no idea that this was something you could do, was buying a business. I don't know why that seemed like right now it does not seem that novel of a concept, but when you're 23, I mean, I thought you just had to start your own business. You just had to make your own business. I didn't realize that there were business brokers out there that you could actually, go and buy a business. And so that could just be my own blind spot. But I think that would be something I'd be very much encouraging young people to do, that if you are looking at, buying a business, there is a lot of businesses out there that are looking to sell. I just heard about one today where they approached an investor friend of mine, and they have I think it's a 65, 70-year-old owner and his sons, and do not want to take over the business. So they're now showing that, hey, this is a very cash positive business, absolutely a great business to buy and to own, and they're looking for people to buy it and own it and operate it. And for the person selling it, it's a good deal too, because they can make some money. And especially if you've designed a great business that has repeatable customers, it's a great lifestyle. And I think especially in building, because we have a huge absence of people, or a huge just amount of people leaving the trades and leaving the industry. A lot of knowledge is leaving as well. There's going to be massive amounts of opportunity. I mean, I don't know the actual years on this, but I mean, you're going to have a decade, maybe two, of opportunity. And so if you are a young person thinking about, buying a business, starting a business, maybe being an apprentice for a few years, I mean, there is serious opportunity out there for people that want to get into the trades. So the thing that I would like to change the most about the industry is just the awareness of what a good lifestyle it is. And I think it really does help if you like to get up early, because it seems like a lot of the job sites, a lot of the things that they're early starters, but it's kind of like early to start, early to end. I know lots of one of my trimmers for a long time. He used to like to get the job site at like 4:30, but he was gone at like 2 or 3 because he would coach his daughter's trap team. He would like to spend time, pick up his kids from school. And it seems like the flexibility of construction allows you to have a pretty balanced life. I think you have to, I've spoken a lot about it on the podcast, but I think we have to make sure that we're putting, you know, safeguards in our lives so that we're not working nights and weekends and things like that. Because when you do own a business, especially early on, you really can fall into that trap of just, I've got to make it work and I'm going to do anything possible. And I'm not saying you don't, but I think just realizing that there's a balance to it. And I think once you look around and you maybe follow other people that have a great balance in their life, I think that's where mentorship is really helpful. I think, something else I'd like to change about our industry is sort of breaking down the walls. I know we're actively trying to do that, actually. I love the fact that it seems like now more often than not, you hear collaboration over competition. It's something that very much resonates with me. I mean, it's why I started the Curious Builder podcast. And it's why we have the Curious Collective, not only for, builders, but we now have started the Curious Collective for interior designers. And we just launched the Curious Collective for architects, and really just getting small focused groups where you get 20 to 30 builders, 20 to 30 designers, 20 to 30 architects, and just have them sit in a room in small groups and just share their experience, talk about business. I think the days where everyone sort of created something one off in their own lab, only to emerge and realize that 10 other people have been doing the same thing in their lab, it just seems like a really silly way to go through life. And it just seems like so much more can be accomplished when we work together, when we collaborate. And honestly, owning a business can be kind of lonely. If you are if you're a one-man band and you do all the work, I mean, you're really busy, but you don't have a lot of time for networking, and a lot of time for talking to other builders or people in your industry. And so I think as you start to scale your business a little bit and you start to hire people, I think it becomes much easier to start looking outward for inspiration and to start sharing some of what you've learned. And I think I know lots of architects that are kind of their lone wolf architects, our home designers or interior designers. And it seems like the ones that I've talked to, especially the interior designer groups, they really crave community, and they get it with the builders, they get it with their partners. But, how often do, 10, 20 designers sit down and talk about accounts receivable, about hiring and firing? Maybe they do. I don't think, from what I've heard, they don't. And architects, I don't know what kind of platforms are out there for them. I know builders, we have the Builder 20, and we have different trade organizations, but I think it's only going to get better and better. And so I actually am very encouraged at where I see the industry going. And I do think this is the positive side of social media. This is the positive side of a smaller world. There's a builder down in Atlanta, who's not even my Builder 20 group, Brad Robinson. I had him on the podcast. We kind of hit it off, and he and I probably text or talk once a week. It could be a 3-minute phone call about whatever. And I think the world is getting so small, and we connect with other people. And sometimes people feel more comfortable talking with someone in Atlanta or someone in California or someone in Texas. Well, that's great. You can reach out to them. It seems like people are more and more open to, connecting. But there's so many people in your local market. I mean, there's many, many builders in my Minneapolis market that I speak to regularly. Before we even started the Curious Builder Collective, we had something which we call the S7. It still exists. And, there's 9 builders that are in it, and we get together a couple times a year, 4 times a year, and we just talk about whatever we're dealing with. It's less structured and less formal, but it's still really helpful. It's nice to have people that you can talk to. And so I think that the one thing that I would change about the industry, I think it's changing, and I think it's changing quickly. And I'm really, really, really excited for that change.
Lake Society magazine is Minneapolis' premier target market boutique lifestyle and design publication. It embodies the unique lifestyles and design of the Minneapolis City Lakes neighborhoods. From Lake of the Isles to Lake Harriet, it showcases the best in local design projects by both premier builders, architects, and interior designers in this area. Lake Society magazine has the look and feel of a national publication with glossy covers, high-end finishes. It's mailed directly to upper bracket single-family homeowners in the City Lakes area, and it's the perfect local coffee tabletop publication. Subscriptions can also be available through the website lakesocietymagazine.com. Additionally, publisher and founder Karen Steckel has over 27 years in the local magazine publishing industry and has a passion for high-end photography and quality graphics. Her commitment to quality, visual simplicity, and beauty are strongly reflected in her beautiful Lake Society magazine.
The second question was, what is the one thing that you would have done differently as an entrepreneur? That's a good question. I think it's kind of ongoing. I think I'm always thinking about things I can do different as an entrepreneur. I think I already addressed it a little bit in the previous question. Was I didn't know you could buy a business. I thought, you could only start a business. And especially at 23, it's like I didn't have any money. So who would ever I couldn't go buy a business 'cause I didn't have any money. I never even thought that I could go find a business that I really liked, and that, I wasn't this smart to think this way and think like, hey, this person's probably 55 or 60. If I really excited about this trade or this business, I could work with them for, a couple of years and maybe do some sort of equity, buy into the business. I mean, I had no concept of that. And so that would have been something that I wish education systems would have taught us. That would have been a really cool concept to understand in high school about how that even works so that you were even aware of it. I also think that as an entrepreneur, I was always about creating something. I still am. But now at, 43 years old versus 23, I'm thinking about selling it. I think the Curious Builder brand is something that is sellable. I mean, I think we have 7 business platforms now because of it. And so I'm really excited, I'll keep it for, a couple decades, but I'm excited for the education, the community building, and the different platforms that it can have. And therefore it's going to be a sellable business. I didn't have any of those thoughts when I was 23 starting Mark D. Williams Custom Homes. I've mentioned it many times on the podcast. I wish I wouldn't have named my company after my own name. And lots of successful builders have. So it's not that. It's just, and I don't know how much more sellable my business would be, if it was called, Aspen Builders or, Timber Frame Homes or something like that. You still have to have a, business that can cash flow, that has clients and things like that. I just think it's hard to sell a building company, especially a custom home company like mine without lots of assets and things like that. And so I think to any entrepreneur, I think what's that old saying? Think about the end, or now I'm blanking on that. Begin with the end in mind. And I think had I ever thought that someday, you would spend who knows how many hours of your life, how many years of your life, let's say you built, say you create a business for 40 years, the idea that you wouldn't be able to sell it at the end is actually kind of sad. And if I had thought about that at 23, I either would have structured my company very differently, I would have scaled it. Who knows? Maybe I never would have gotten into building. I don't know. And so I would just, anyone out there considering starting a business, not only do you have to make sure it's viable and you can start it, which is difficult enough in itself, but do you envision this being a sellable asset someday? And, I look around at people that they build something, and I'm really impressed with people that, they can build a company in a short order and then they turn around and sell it. Recently, a shout out to Matt Calvano from Adaptive. They've got a new AI tech company, and I'm really excited for what they're doing. And they are rapidly growing and they're building a business. But this wasn't his first business. Just in passing, we were talking about another company, and he just said, "Oh, I was part of, helping that company go public." And I was just blown away. I'm like, that's amazing. I mean, he's so young and he's already had multiple businesses that have, succeeded on a whole nother level than I could even imagine. And so it's really inspiring to hear entrepreneurs create something and then sell it. And some people just have a gift. I mean, it's like they're business builders. They can build a business in a short amount of time. That's what they really are excited about. And then they sell it and they turn it over and then they do it again. Talk about a glutton for punishment. To do it once is hard enough. To do it multiple times and being known for that, I mean, that's an incredible talent. But obviously, they have a skill set and they have an organization to their thought, and they have an organization to the skill and the craft and the end in mind. And I would imagine that once you've done it a few times, you probably get better at it. I mean, I would love to bring on a serial entrepreneur that has not only started a number of businesses, because I think there's a lot of built people I know that have been on the podcast that have started them. I'd be very curious to have someone on the podcast that has started a business, sold it, and started a completely different business. So if anyone out there knows somebody like this, please recommend them to the show. I would love to interview them. That sounds sort of fascinating. So I would say that those are a few things that I would have done differently as an entrepreneur starting out. I also think I would have done peer groups much earlier. It's only really been the last 3-4 years where I feel like my network has just exploded. And, really that was a big shout out to the Contractor Coalition. They have their next one coming up in Boston here shortly. And there's going to be, 2 every year. And it's just amazing at what that can do for your career, specifically around construction. But regardless of what field you're in, there are peer groups, there are networking groups, or create them. Sometimes if we don't see the thing that we want, we need to create it. I kind of felt like with the Curious Collectives, it was something that, we have the Builder 20s, but they're pretty formal. They meet twice a year. There's pretty big cost associated with them, a lot of travel. Is super valuable. I'm a part of it. I fully believe it. I think there's things like the Contractor Coalition. It's 3 days of intensive learning. And then I wanted something different than all of those, but somehow a combination of all of them. So I think sometimes if you don't see something out there, this goes back to being an entrepreneur, create it. And it'll help you with whatever your career choice is. If you're an HVAC or a plumber and there doesn't seem to be a lot of plumbers getting together, start your own group. Start reaching out to other plumbers and asking them, hey, let's get 5 plumbers and let's meet for coffee, 4 times a year just to talk about what's happening. And maybe there's groups out there like that. I'm just not aware of them, but I just feel like sometimes we wait for something to hit us over the head. But I think if we're curious and we try to explore and ask around, I think that's where the real magic starts to happen. It's kind of this community involvement. That's another thing I definitely wish I would have done earlier on in my career. I'd say for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been involved with some local high schools. I mentor 2 different groups, one in the spring, one in the fall, and they'll basically you talk to a local school, and for me it's a business program, and I'll mentor 7 kids. Actually, when I launched the Curious Builder platform, we had a group of 7 that sort of helped me launch the business, which I imagine was probably as fun for them as it was for me. I hope some of them is still listening. I hope they're listening to this episode right now. And so it's kind of fun to involve in the community. It could be a charity. We're doing our first charity coming up before this episode will air, actually, on August 1st with the Joy Collaborative. And if you've been following the show, you've heard me talk about it. You've seen our social feeds, but I think just being involved in your community is something that we hear a lot. And it's not that I didn't value it. I just never felt like I had the time. And I do have a young family, which makes it challenging as well. But it doesn't have to be a big grand gesture either. It could be something, quite small. And your community could even be the people on your job site. It could be as the owner, you show up on a hot day with a couple boxes of popsicles. I don't care if you're a little kid or an adult, but on a hot day, popsicles and ice cream sandwiches taste pretty good, or cold drinks. And I think just some form of community involvement and giving back is really important. And I think it sort of broadens not only your network and your mind, but it allows you to sort of give back. I've mentioned it a few times that there's these 3 phases of business life, and it's earn, learn, and return. And I don't know if other entrepreneurs that have been out there for a couple decades start feeling the way I am, because it's like maybe as a 23-year-old, you can't think like this. I don't know. I'd love to think that there are some really young progressive minds out there that are thinking about this, decades before I did, because it's really needed in our industry. So anyway, that's my answer to the 2 questions. Have a great week, and we'll see you Monday on next Thursday. We're excited to announce that we've opened up another Curious Collective. For the last year, we've had the Curious Builder Collective. We now have the Curious Builder Collective for designers. The first ones will be happening in September. All the details are going to be on our website. We have 30 spots available. Half of them have already filled. We additionally have 8 spots left in the Builder Collective. If you're interested in getting together in small groups of 9 with local Minneapolis-based builders and designers in separate groups and talking about your business, talking about your brands, asking those questions that you wish you could ask another business owner, then this is the place for you. Details can be found at the CuriousBuilderPodcast.com. Thanks for listening to the Curious Builder Podcast. If you like what you listen to, please give us a 5-star rating and write us a review. It really means a lot. It's a great way for us to just understand what you like about the podcast and what we can keep doing. So like and review, and please share with your friends and family. Find out more at CuriousBuilderPodcast.com.